Hi, and this is Srija. So today you are going to learn about the cardiac output, the blood pressure regulation, and also about the functions of cardiovascular system. So first, you are going to learn about the cardiac output. So what is cardiac output? Cardiac output, it is the amount of blood pumped by each ventricle per minute. It shows how well the heart is working to send the oxygen-rich blood to all the parts of the body. So you have the formula for the cardiac output. Cardiac output equals to stroke volume into the heart rate. So what is stroke volume over here? The amount of blood pumped by one ventricle in one heartbeat. So how much amount of blood is pumped by one ventricle in one heartbeat? Normally about the 70 milliliters per beat. So what is the heart rate? Heart rate is nothing but it is the number of heartbeats per minute. So normally about 70 beats per minute. So example calculation. CO equals to 70 into 70. 70 milliliters per beat into 70 beats per minute is equals to 4900 milliliter per minute. So this is approximately 5 liters of blood per minute. So this means your heart pumps almost your entire blood volume every minute. So what is the normal range? 4 to 6 liters per minute in a healthy adult at rest. So why it's important of the cardiac output? So it shows how efficiently the heart delivers blood and oxygen to tissues. If carbon dioxide is too low, organs don't get enough oxygen. If carbon dioxide is too high, it can indicate the stress of heart overwork, right? It can indicate the stress or heart overwork. So here you can see a picture of the cardiac output, the total tissue blood flow. In this, the blood pump, this picture shows how the blood is distributed. So in this, the blood pump from the left heart aorta, it goes to different parts of the body. So the blood pumped from the left aorta, it goes to different parts of the body like the brain 14%, heart 4%, splanchnic circulation 27%, kidneys 22%, muscles 15%, and skin and other tissues 18%. So after circulating, the blood returns to the right heart via the vena cava, completing the cycle. So nothing but, in simple words, the heart works like a pump. With each beat, it pushes blood, that is stroke volume. So when you count how many beats happen in a minute, it is the heart rate, right? So you found how much blood the heart pumps per minute or per cycle. That is the cardiac output, simply. So what are the components of the cardiac output? The stroke volume and the heart rate. So what is stroke volume? Stroke volume is nothing but it's the amount of blood pumped by one ventricle in one heartbeat. So what is the normal value of the stroke volume? 70 to 80 milliliters per beat. It tells how the strong and effective each heartbeat is. So there are three factors which affect the stroke volume. So what are the three factors? Preload, contractility, and afterload. So what is preload? Nothing but filling the pressure. So preload means how much the heart muscle is stretched before it contracts. So this stretching happens when blood fills the ventricles during the diastole, nothing but the relaxation. So it depends on the venous return, like how much blood comes back to the heart. So more blood returning, the ventricles stretch more, right? After, if the ventricles stretch more, it will be a stronger contraction and then more blood is pumped out. So this is called as the Frank-Starling law. The more the heart pumps or flows, the stronger it pumps. So the next factor, the next component of the cardiac output is contractility. Contractility is nothing but the pump strength. So contractility means how strong the heart muscle contracts. So regardless of how much it was filled. So it depends on how active the heart muscle cells are. So it is increased by sympathetic stimulation, adrenaline, and also the calcium. It is decreased by the lack of oxygen and acid buildup. And also the heart failure. Heart failure means when contractility is high, the heart pumps harder, so the higher stroke volume happens. So the two main points you have to remember is preload means how much the heart feels. Contractility means how strong it contracts. So in the next slide, you will be learning about the afterload, like how much the pressure the heart has to pump against. So what is afterload? Afterload is the resistance or the pressure the heart's ventricle must push against to eject the blood. So think of it like the pressure the heart has to overcome to open the aortic wall and send blood into the arteries. So how is afterload determined? It is mainly determined by the aortic pressure, nothing but the pressure in the aorta, and systemic vascular resistance, that is a resistance of blood vessels throughout the body. So how much effect the afterload will be on the heart? If afterload increases, it will be a more resistance, right? So then the heart has to work harder to pump the blood. So this makes it harder to eject the blood also. So at last the stroke volume decreases in this afterload. So this is mainly seen in the conditions like hypertension and also the aortic stenosis. Like pushing water through a narrow hose is harder. The same way, pumping blood against the high resistance makes the work harder. So this is about the afterload. And then next, coming to the component of the cardiac output is the heart rate. So what do you mean by heart rate? The number of heartbeats per minute is called as the heart rate. So it decides how many times the heart pumps blood in 1 minute. So this is mainly controlled by the autonomic nervous system. That is the sympathetic nerves. It increases the heart rate. Sympathetic nerves means the fight or flight hormones. They increases the heart rate like adrenaline, exercise and stress like activities. And coming to parasympathetic nerves, vagus nerve, rest and digest. So this increases the heart rate like relaxation and also during sleep. It increases the heart rate. So when heart rate increases, the cardiac output automatically increases up to a point. But if it becomes too high, the heart doesn't have enough time to fill properly and stroke volume may fall. So here you can see the picture how the factors affecting stroke volume and how the factors affecting the heart rate. So factors affecting the stroke volume, the preload, venous returning and filling time, the nerves and hormones are the contractility, and afterload, it is the resistance in vessels. Whereas factors affecting the heart rate, it's autonomic control, sympathetic and parasympathetic, and hormones like adrenaline. So cardiac output is nothing but it's a heart rate into stroke volume. It is a combination of heart rate and stroke volume. It depends on how fast the heart beats and how much blood is pumped per beat. So stroke volume itself depends on preload, contractility and afterload. All these together decide how effectively your heart supplies blood to the body. This is about the cardiac output. And next, coming to blood pressure regulation. So what is blood pressure first? Blood pressure is the force of blood pushing against the walls of the blood vessels. So this helps blood flow through the body to deliver the oxygen and nutrients. So what is the normal range of blood pressure? It is about 120 by 80 mmHg. Here 120 is the systolic pressure when the heart contracts and 80 is the diastolic pressure when the heart relaxes. So what is the formula for blood pressure? Cardiac output into peripheral resistance, TPR. So what is cardiac output? Like how much blood the heart pumps per minute. So what is peripheral resistance? It's how tight or wide the blood vessels are. So what happens when blood pressure increases? The cardiac output increases and also the TPR increases. Why? The CO increases, the cardiac output increases because more blood ejected by the heart, and the peripheral resistance also increases because the blood vessels constrict, the blood vessels get narrowed. So why blood pressure regulation is important? The blood pressure must stay stable to ensure the enough blood reaches all the organs, especially the brain, heart and kidneys. Right. So this is why it is more important. So what are the mechanisms of the blood pressure regulation? So there are two mechanisms, the neural regulation and the hormonal regulation, right? Neural regulation and the hormonal regulation. So what do you mean by the neural regulation? So this works within seconds. It is a short-term control and this maintain the blood pressure from moment to moment. This neural regulation, it is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. So in this, you have the baroreceptor reflex, the most important one, and also the chemoreceptor reflex and the CNS is ischemic response. So what do you mean by the baroreceptor reflex? It is located at the carotid sinus and also at the aortic arch. So how does this work? When blood pressure rises, these baroreceptors, they send signals to the brain. So after brain detecting the signals, this brain reduces the heart rate and vessel constriction, and then the blood pressure decreases. So whenever the blood pressure decreases, the brain increases the heart rate and it constricts the vessels, and the blood increases, the blood pressure increases. So this happens instantly, helping you to stand up quickly without fainting. So this helps you to stand up quickly without fainting. So what does this baroreceptors do? Baroreceptors, they detect the stretch of arteries, like how much they expand when blood pressure rises. So these receptors, they send signals to the medulla oblongata, which is a cardiovascular control center in the brain. So the medulla then adjusts the heart rate, the strength of heart contraction, and also the blood vessel diameter. This is to increase or decrease the blood pressure as needed. So the baroreceptor, and now we'll talk about a chemoreceptor reflex. So where does this chemoreceptor reflex is found? It is found in the carotid and aortic bodies. So carotid body is nothing but near the carotid arteries in the neck, whereas the aortic bodies is nothing but near the aortic arch. So what are the stimulus? So oxygen levels decreases, the carbon dioxide increases, and the hydrogen ions increases. So what happens whenever this stimulus takes place? These receptors, these chemoreceptors, they send signals to the medulla oblongata. So after sending the signals, the brain responds by increasing the heart rate and also the blood pressure. So this improves the blood flow to lungs and brain, and also to restore the normal oxygen and the carbon dioxide levels. And the last one is CNS ischemic response, the central nervous system. So when it is activated, it happens only when the brain's blood flow is dangerously low, like in a severe shock or a cardiac arrest. So what does it do? What does this ischemic response do? The brain's vasometer center triggers a powerful sympathetic response. Okay, this causes a strong narrowing of the blood vessels, nothing but the vasoconstriction. So this helps to raise blood pressure sharply to restore the blood flow to the brain. So you have to remember, like baroreceptors, they detect the pressure changes. Chemoreceptors, they detect the chemical changes like oxygen, CO2, acidity. Whereas CNS ischemic response, they are the emergency mechanism when brain blood flow is critically low. So this is about the blood pressure regulation. And then coming to the hormonal regulation. So what do you mean by hormonal regulation and why it is an intermediate term? Now coming to the renin angiotensin aldosterone system, RAAS. So when it happens, so whenever our blood pressure drops, our blood volume decreases, like during dehydration or blood loss. So what are the steps in the hormonal regulation? The kidneys, first of all, the kidneys, they detect the low blood pressure, so that they release an enzyme called as renin. So what does this renin do? This renin converts a protein in the blood, that is angiotensinogen, which is made by the liver, and it converts into angiotensin 1. And then this angiotensin converting enzyme, this converts angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2 into the active form. So what are the actions of the angiotensin 2? Vasoconstriction, it stimulates the aldosterone release, it stimulates the ADH, and it stimulates the thirst. Vasoconstriction is nothing but it narrows the blood vessels, right? narrows the blood vessels, it increases the TPR and it raises the blood pressure. Whereas stimulates aldosterone means aldosterone makes kidneys reabsorb the sodium and water so that it increases the blood volume and raises the blood pressure. Whereas stimulating ADH means antidiuretic hormone. So this ADH, it helps the kidneys to retain water, whereas more fluid, and then it increases the higher blood volume and you will find the higher blood pressure. So it also stimulates the thirst. So it makes you drink more water. Further, it increases the blood volume and it increases the blood pressure. So this is how the renin-angiotensin aldosterone system works. And then aldosterone, the hormonal regulation aldosterone. So this aldosterone, it is secreted by the adrenal cortex, which is a part of the adrenal gland. So when it is secreted, when the blood pressure or blood sodium levels are low, this aldosterone is secreted. So what does this do? What is the function of the aldosterone? It increases the reabsorption of sodium and the water in the kidneys. So this increases the blood volume, which helps to raise the blood pressure. So aldosterone, it adds sodium and water and it adds also the pressure. And next, antidiuretic hormone, ADH or vasopressin. So this hormone is secreted by posterior pituitary gland. So when it is secreted, when BP drops or when BP low or the blood osmolarity increases, that is nothing but too concentration of the blood due to less water. So whenever this happens, this hormone, it is secreted. So what will be the causes or actions of this hormone? It causes a water reabsorption in kidneys, which leads to less urine and more water in body, which raises the blood pressure. And whereas at high levels, it causes the narrowing of the blood vessels, that increases the blood pressure. So antidiuretic means stops urine, it keeps water, and also in the same way it raises the blood pressure. And then the epinephrine and noradrenaline hormone. So what does these hormones do? They are released from the adrenal medulla during stress or exercise. So what are the effects of this epinephrine and noradrenaline? They increases the heart rate, they increases the heart contractility, and also they causes the vasoconstriction, nothing but the narrowing of blood vessels. So all of these lead to higher blood pressure and better blood flowing during the stress or exercise. And the last hormone is atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP. So this atrial natriuretic peptide, it is secreted by the atria of the heart. So when the blood pressure or volume is too high, this hormone gets secreted. So this causes, what are the function of this ANP hormone? It causes the excretion of sodium and water in the urine. So it also dilates the blood vessels, where the both actions lowers the blood volume and the blood pressure. This is about the hormonal regulation. And next, coming to the renal regulation. So what do you mean by renal regulation? It is also a long-term control of a BP, and the system, it works slowly over hours to days, not instantly like hormone regulation or nerve regulation. So the kidneys are the main organs that control blood pressure in the long term. So what does they do? They do this by regulating the blood volume, because more blood volume gives you the higher BP and less blood volume gives you the lower BP. So now how kidneys regulate the BP? If BP is low, kidneys retain water and sodium. So this increases the blood volume, which raises the blood pressure. If BP is high, kidneys excrete more water and you will find more sodium in the urine. So this reduces the blood volume, which lowers the BP. So there are the factors that increases the BP and also decreases the BP. So what factors that increases the BP? A sympathetic stimulation. So this activates the fight or flight, which speeds up the heart rate and constricts the vessels. Whereas the angiotensin 2, this causes the vasoconstriction, nothing but the narrowing of vessels. Aldosterone, this makes the kidney retain salt and also the water. And then ADH, it retains the water. High blood volume, more fluid, more pressure, right? So vasoconstriction means tightening of the vessels to raise the pressure. Stress, pain, exercise, these all increases the sympathetic activity. So what are the factors that decreases the BP? It's a parasympathetic stimulation, the rest and digest. It slows the heart and relaxes the vessels. And ANP, the atrial natriuretic peptide. So this makes the kidneys excrete salt and water, so which lowers the blood volume. And also the vasodilation, the blood loss or dehydration, and rest and the relaxation. So this is about the renal regulation. So you have learned about the three types of regulations, that is nerve regulation, hormonal regulation, and also the renal regulation. So at last, so what are the functions of the cardiovascular system? The cardiovascular system is a combination of heart, blood, and blood vessels. So this is essential for transporting substances, maintaining homeostasis, and protecting the body. So what is the transport function? It is a main function of the cardiovascular system. Transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Here it delivers oxygen from lungs to tissues and removes the carbon dioxide from tissues to lungs for exhalation. And B, transport of nutrients. It carries nutrients from the digestive tract to body cells. And transport of waste products. It removes the metabolic waste like hormonal waste or food waste to kidneys, liver, skin for excretion. And D, transport for hormones. This carry the hormones from endocrine glands to target the organs. And E, it's a transport of heat. It helps in body temperature regulation. So blood flow increases to skin to lose the heat or decreases to conserve the heat. So this is about the transport function. And the next function is the regulation of the body function. So what is the regulation of pH? The blood buffers like bicarbonate hemoglobin maintains the normal pH like around 7.35 to 7.45. And then the regulation of fluid balance. The plasma proteins, especially albumin, they maintain the osmotic pressure, right? It prevents excess tissue fluid buildup, which is called as the edema. And C, it's a regulation of body temperature. When vasodilation, when widening of vessels takes place, it results in heat loss. When narrowing of blood vessels takes place, that is vasoconstriction, the heat conserves. So this is about the regulation of the body function. And the third function is the protection of the body. So protection of the body means protection against the blood loss, nothing but the clotting mechanisms like platelets, clotting factors, they prevent the bleeding, right? This is the function of the protection against the blood loss. And protection against the infection. So white blood cells, they destroy the pathogens and the antibodies provide the immunity. And the fourth function is maintenance of the blood pressure. So how the blood pressure is maintained? So this cardiovascular system, it maintains the adequate pressure to ensure the proper blood flow to the tissues. So this is regulated by the cardiac output, peripheral resistance, autonomic nervous system, and also the hormones like RAS, ADH, and ANP. And the fifth function is homeostasis. So homeostasis, the cardiovascular system, it helps to maintain the overall internal balance. So what do you mean by overall internal balance? Like temperature, pH, fluid, and electrolyte balance, nutrient distribution, and also the waste material. So these are all included by the cardiovascular system within the homeostasis. And the sixth function is the circulation pathways. So the cardiovascular system, it ensures the continuous movement of blood through systemic circulation, body, pulmonary circulation through lungs, and coronary circulation, heart muscle, and also portal circulation, that is gastrointestinal tract to the liver. And the seventh function, the last function of the cardiovascular system is support for organs and tissues. So they delivers the oxygen plus nutrients needed for the metabolism. It also maintains the normal function of the brain, kidneys, lungs, muscles, and all the organs. So this is all about today's session. I hope this session has helped you to learn about the physiology and the cardiac cycle of the cardiovascular system. So in the next session, you are going to learn about the ICD-10-CM guidelines for the diseases of the cardiovascular system and also the ICD-10-CM code classification. Thank you.